everybody. It is Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today, with the help of my husband, John,
hello,
we're going to show you how you can paint a fisherman standing in a lake with a soft ripple across the water. So this is going to be a really great class because we're going to be covering the techniques on how to create that mild ripple effect on water that's still really reflective of the sky. Show you how to create the reflections that you might expect from like grasses and fronds. We're going to talk about things like how you get the wonderful wrinkles and effects on like crumply clothes and camouflage. There's so many different little tips and tricks we're going to get into, including like how to get that crazy backlight on the ear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So much about this is really going to answer a lot of questions. Maybe you're here for just today's painting, and that is okay. If you're not aware, this is part of a free 30-day program, which of course you can take longer than 30 days. That's the goal, but it's not like I'm going to come in your house and be like, oh, but it's a 330 painting program that if you start from 1 and get all the way to 30, you will understand how to paint the topic of water in landscape better. It's called A Story of Water. So hopefully you'll check that out. If not, and you're just here to paint this awesome fisher dude, we're going to have this explained step by step, every part of the process, everything that you need to know to complete the painting. If you check the description below, you see materials and links to the website. On the website is like a step-by-step written out mini book that you can download. There are traceables, there are grid references, there's everything you need as a new painter to complete this. And guess what, John?
What's that?
He already knows this. It's totally free. You don't have to pay for it or do any of that. It is there for you because the goal is to make sure that you have everything you need. This is Acrylic April 2021, hashtag Acrylic April 2021 if you want to share your art with me online. And really, I don't think there's anything to do but get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me at this easel right now. Well, table really, at this space right now. I'm going to show you for real how to paint this fisherman. So let's look at the materials that we're going to be using in today's lesson. So much like every day in Acrylic April, we have an 8x8 surface. This is an 8x8 canvas. It's stretched. On this, I have the wishes or intentions or ideas. Just put it out there because I'm cheering for you guys. The energy to keep going. Over here in materials on the paint, I have cad red out. I have cad yellow. I have burnt sienna. This is my phthalo blue. This is my ultramarine blue, my titanium white, and my Mars black. Now, guys, if you are not at the place yet where phthalo blue and ultramarine blue looks different to you, and if you're new to painting, they may not look different to you yet to your eye. You'll get there. It'll happen. John can tell them apart now.
Yeah. Sometimes. I forget which the name of them, but I know the difference between the two. So I'll be like, I know that one has more red and that one
But it can take a second. It's not something you might necessarily know off the bat. You may want to put your blues in different spots or label them in some way. Me now, I'll let you know which blue I'm in, and we'll talk about this as we go so you won't get confused. And then plus you'll have the mini books so you can reference those to make sure what step or page or color mix that you're on, right?
I've been watching you for like, I don't know, years now, and I still don't know for sure which one is phthalo and which one's ultramarine.
It's, phthalo, ultramarine. It's so obvious.
I also don't know which one is yellow and brown, so
Yeah. These are artist struggles that you don't have. You have artist co-host struggles.
What are you doing today?
I don't know. Step 1 it.
Okay.
Step 1. So for the first step of this painting, we need to make a gradation of blue to a very light color. And this is going to give us that kind of still water mirror glass effect that we want. I'm probably going to be using at least one blender and a nice bigger brush to get this effect. So let's put those aside. I'm going to begin by getting my big wide brush. This is the number 26 bright, which is just a nice stiff bright. And we're going to get some white on here. And interestingly enough, I'm going to come up to the top and brush down the white a little bit. Bringing that down because it's almost white at the top of the image.
It almost disappears there into the surface.
You mean the white paint disappears into the white paint?
Well, it's got a subtle
camouflage.
Difference. It's got there's a subtle sheen difference, and almost
there's a sheen, but yeah.
And you know what's interesting? I think there's a quality of the white that's different than the gesso.
That is super true. There is a difference in the quality of the white paint from the gesso. The gesso is very chalky. This is the phthalo. This is the ultramarine. We're going to be mixing them together in a 1-to-1 mix, which just means the same amount of phthalo to ultramarine. We're going to come from the bottom, and we're going to start brushing this across. I think I do need it to be a little darker down here than what I have, and we're going to brush it up, not getting any more paint. And as I go up, I'm going to lighten my pressure and then kind of focus over towards the left-hand side a little bit. So let's rinse that out. That's pretty okay. It's pretty all right. I'm going to take my blender. This is the oval mop. And I'm going to soften those transitions.
Oh, yeah. They really do soften up a bit.
Yeah.
It takes the brushy strokeness out.
And that's kind of what you want, because the water can be a little more glass-like with what it's doing. And come down here again and hit another layer of the phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. Just making sure this is a good solid beginning. I don't want to take the dark too far up. Mm-hmm. And then again, I might focus a little bit to the left side, as you see me do. And then let's come here and again, softly blend this, making soft, subtle transitions. So in acrylic, sometimes people think that you can't get the kind of blending that you might expect in oil painting, but you can. You just have to, I'm rinsing out and wiping off the brush. You just have to use a 2-brush technique while the paint is wet to get it. So it's just a common misconception about acrylic paint. And what we should have is a very good ombre. And I like to look at this and make sure that there isn't too much of a banding. That's what I'm going to try to get rid of, is any banding that I could have. You see me getting in here with this and coming in and trying to get rid of banding. And banding is that stripe. You don't want to stripe. Right? So blend, 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 blend. This all works great while the paint is wet and gets to be more challenging as the paint dries. There we go. So just making sure that we're there. Oh, that's perfect. So that's a little bit of a harrowing journey, right? There's a little bit of speed to that. I kind of had to I'm sorry, baby, shift in the conversation, because it's like paint's a drying.
That's okay. We got it done.
Sometimes. So I'm always happy to hear John talk, but sometimes paint's a drying, and we gotta move along. So what we want to do now is dry our surface thoroughly, and then come back and I'll show you how to use the transfer. So for the next step, we're going to transfer our subject matter onto the canvas. And there's several ways that you can do this. You can use projection, you can freehand, you can use the gridding method, or you could use the transfer method. And we do provide a free traceable for our lessons on the website that you can use. Now, to do the transfer method, I'm going to use a product called Ceril paper. I like the yellow because it shows up but doesn't stain the paint. I have low tack tape on here, so I can keep reusing the Ceril paper. John will tell you, you can reuse Ceril paper like a bunch. It has you just keep turning it and reorienting it, and there's always new Ceril that can transfer onto the surface. I like this for acrylic very, very much. And again, if this isn't a way that you want to put the image on here, there are a plethora of ways to do that. I'm going to take my traceable, which again, we provide you free. Just download it and print it out to the size of the surface you're working on. And I'm going to also tape this down. I'm going to tape it down in 2 places so that it doesn't move on me at all. Because that's the big thing that will mess you up with a transfer, is that the image that you're transferring shifts in some kind of way and it ends up looking out of focus. Now, a lot of people like to use a jelly pen or a colored hardballed pen or a colored pencil. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to use this pencil, and we're going to trace over every line that we have on our figure, right over the lines that are on this paper. And we're going to press fairly hard. And that is going to allow us to get a nice image transfer.
I like that if you don't have this arrow paper, you can just use the back of your pencil on the back and make a scribble mark, and it'll transfer the same.
I think for this I would use white chalk though, because the graphite won't necessarily transfer or show on the blue. But you can. You can.
But if you're in a pinch,
in a pinch, just use that white chalk method. We have videos on how to use traceables, and it includes those tips.
Yep.
So if you need a little help getting your image on, I have a short video just on how to use this method, and then an hour-long video of all the methods. So lots of ways to get it there. And we're working on a way to help you guys do that too. So, but I don't know if by the time this video is out, that way will be available to you yet.
We don't know.
The magic of time travel and digital teaching. I don't know. Maybe it will be. That would be something that you would see probably on our website. This is where his boots get into the water. I guess these boots have two weird little layery things. I don't know anything about fishing boots. I just paint them.
I know that they tend to be waterproof.
Do they?
It helps for fishing.
I don't know why I said do they, like that was a question I didn't already know the answer to.
Of course. In the water, and the boots need to be waterproof.
That's
about all I know about fishermen's boots.
And I am going to go ahead and give myself kind of a guide on this line. I'll probably come back with a ruler to make sure I have a nice straight one. I just want to know about its size. And then what I do is I'll check to see how I did. How did I do? I don't know yet. Very carefully untaping. Hopefully we've got a nice transfer and we don't have to film that segment again. And we do.
Very good.
So now I know where my guy is on the water. I've got space for his little shadow to come off right here. Right, so we've got the nice little shadow space coming off and his little grass. And we can really play with those things. All right. That is how you do that. And so we'll call that its own step. Definitely use the mini book if you want to get some more information on this or see how that places out. And we'll come back and we'll start painting in the ripples. So for this step, we're going to come in and we're going to put some ripples in. If you have any lines that you want to put in stronger, you can use something like a pastel chalk pencil, which is what I was talking about. You could rub on the back of your paper if you didn't have the Serral paper, just making sure where I have those lines on him. And I can also use the chalk to sort of help me see where I might be putting, or at least start my ripples. Once you start your ripples, they kind of lead to their own little pattern because they really predictably go out unless something else was dropped in the water. So you can kind of use them very easily. And I'm going to take a number 4 round and I'm going to use just my phthalo blue and ultramarine blue mixed together. And we paint, interestingly enough, the shadow on the water. This is a slow and sort of meticulous process. So it's a good idea to, take a breath, pace yourself, make sure you've got good positioning so that you don't wear yourself out. Just come along here and
those are like little wavy.
And see, it already starts to make it look like little rippled water, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so cool how it does this.
It's just so fast.
and you do have ripples and everything kind of through here, and we'll sort of, there is a little run of reeds and things that kind of makes this little triangle here to about here. So my ripples will really only come to about here on the canvas as we go through, because there's a different set of rippling around the reeds, because the reeds obviously break the flow of the water in a different way. I'm going to turn my canvas a little bit just so that I have a comfortable positioning. For the rippling. You'll find in life that sometimes you have a nice comfortable positioning on any stroke. I like to make sure that some are bigger and thinner and some get thicker and thinner as they ripple out. That way there's this sense of
sort of shore off the edge.
Yeah. Well, and really what this is, I think this is wind going over the water, sort of pushing it. Now, as we come up above the reeds, the ripples actually start to sort of straighten out. And they may even get a little bit lighter. And they don't really, over here where the water is very bright, you don't really see them. So I'm really working these mostly from the left side where we did that little fussy ombre. This is one of those things that, I could make like a whole little tip technique video about. Oh, wait, I did. Because it's really kind of a simple concept, but it's one of those ones that's generally not introduced to new artists early on. And so they don't get access to it, so they don't know. And again, we just sort of pay attention. They can be a little thicker coming off here and then sort of taper out. And you can check that every once in a while. Yeah. And you can see where the reeds are going to be, and they'll do their own little thing a bit when we come down with the little wiggly lines from the reeds. A little wiggly line from the reeds. Yes, that is.
Wiggly.
And again, this is just my number 4 round, and I'm making these little broken lines. As I come up into lighter areas, my brush pressure lightens up quite a lot, and these lines do become a little bit fainter. Because as you kind of can see here,
oh yeah,
the water's fainter, right? So we would be fainter with our lines. So how I make that happen is I just get lighter with my little brush. I don't press as hard. I think I even maybe went up too far, and it's okay to come back, with a very light color.
Yeah.
I might take that out a little bit. Just kind of lighten that out some. I'm coming back over it with white to lighten it out some. Just because these up here would be even lighter. The other thing that we can do is when we come down with a very light color. I'm going to make it almost white. It's not totally white. And then sort of on top of the ripples. You can see me doing this here, just kind of on top of the ripples a bit. I'm adding a highlight. Too much gloppy paint on my brush, John.
Yeah? How do you keep that from happening?
When I see that coming up, I roll it out and reload it. It's just about the load of the paint, and if you're working quickly, sometimes you can load the brush kind of heavily. The paint can creep up it, but you just want to see as we come down. We might add a little more blue into our reflection, but it's still a reflection.
Ooh.
There we go.
That little highlight really makes them dimensional.
They do start to become super dimensional, and it will really put some space and thought into what our fisherman has going on here. You can see I add a little more blue where I come down into the darker bits of the water. Just a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Again, I'll have shadows and things that I have to deal with down here, but that gives me that start, and that's how we get that basic ripple in. And that's just a basic water ripple. Basic water ripple. You use it all the time in your water painting, so it's a fully good skill to learn. All right, when we come back, we're going to put in some reeds. All right, the reeds really have some stuff going on. If you'll remember from previous classes where we did mirroring, do you remember all the mirroring we've done this week so far, John?
Yep.
So much mirroring. We're going to take some of those skills that we've been building up and mirror these reeds into this rippling lake. And so that's what all that you were building up to that. You're ready for this. We're going to take our number 1 monogram liner, and I'm going to mix a little bit of black and brown paint together. I'm going to thin it with a drop of water here so it'll flow off. It's very, very dark, very dark. And we're going to come here and bring up a little line and bend it back. Read 1.
They have begun.
They have.
Once those things get a hold, they don't tend to slow down.
Now I'm going to also kind of come back and add a little bit of a reflection below that reed. And John caught it here, and we'll kind of get into the zoom on this if we can.
Yep.
So it's just a little wiggle, a little wiggle, a little wiggle, and a break. So if I am taking what I see there, I am still doing the back bend, because remember, if it bends back, it will make this V. If it bends forward, it will make this V. We're going to be doing that. So when the grass bends back this way, the reflection will V back this way. If the grass bends forward, the reflection will bend this way. And the reflections will also be wiggled and broken because they are in rippling water. So those are the things that you're playing with in your head. And I'm going to bring a little reed up here. And this is a bit of a fussy business.
See, now you did it. I have Sinead screaming in my head.
I've got my little wiggles, and you'll notice that I paid attention to my reflection rules, didn't I?
Oh wow! That now you see the reflections. When you just had one in there, it looked like a wiggly stick, but now you can see where they're coming in out of the water. It takes more than one to make the illusion.
It does take more than one to make the illusion. One just looks like you had a moment and made a mark on your canvas and just went crazy. Several starts to build up. And then when we highlight these top reeds, which will be in the next step, when we put all the highlights on these top reeds and leave these reflection reeds dark, because in the mirror world of the water, things tend to be darker. So bring a little line up. Now we know what my rule is here for this particular one, which is that this can come down a little bit of a reflection, wiggle, wiggle, but this will come out this way. Who doesn't want to paint that? Just like all these hard paintings suddenly seem, hopefully, fingers crossed, a bit easier in your mindset now.
This seems much more doable.
So we have that little grouping. And then, yeah, sadly, we've got to definitely make sure that we do those mirror reflections. What's nice here is that because there's a grip of them in it clustered together, it does give you a chance to sort of really work it out.
Mm.
Make that. I find that I'll pick some definite detailed ones, but then I don't have to be as detailed on everything. So that's another thing to know is there's places you've got to just be like, I gotta be so detailed. And then other places you don't have to be as detailed. So, you know, it's good to know where that goes. Like there's a bunch of upward stalks that you don't have to worry about until we get to this row here, where you have to worry about the reflections. So some of these,
Wow.
we can just paint because we know that they're going to have a little moment. And I will just start the fluffs. Fluffs. So I like to pull in the scale of the fluffs. And again, we finish the fluffs with a whole different little deal. So I can just tap this little thing here because it'll be all about the reflection in the fluff. The light on the fluff. And we won't see this fluff necessarily because it's so long and so tall.
It's very fluffy.
That, yeah, more fluff. And we will really see that when we put the highlights on it. The little pompous fluffs. Maybe add a little bit of an end fluff there to that one. Not as well thought out. It's not as good of a grass as perhaps its little friend. And then we can bring one up here. Bring a little line back. And again, these are far away. They're not our foremost grasses, so we don't have to quite reflect yet. Make sure you're pulling things behind him, and you can run a line into him just a bit if you need to. Because this is a little grove of fairly solid grasses. Whereas any other YouTube video, we would fast forward.
That's where the fish are hiding.
That is where all the fish are probably hiding, but not the ones he wants. This is where the minnows and things are. The ones he wants are out in the deep water, having little fishy lives. About to have bad little fishy lives, in fact.
Depends on how good he is.
Let's assume he's a good fisherman. He's in our painting, and we can make him a good fisherman if we want to. Or if you're on the side of the fish, you can make him a terrible fisherman in your mind. It's your painting, so his story, his backstory is ours to create. I predict now that a lot of the people who are going to paint this are going to be painting about a member of their family who liked to fish. I think fishing is a thinking sport. I do try to cross lines through my reeds as much as I can without making them into cross-hatching. And that's because reeds tend to be messy. Like if I want to have one that's maybe like here, has a little frond here. Just pull that in.
That's it really centers the water. It grounds the water.
It does, and it puts into context what was happening here. Because there was a context to why the water had changed It's ripple pattern. Looking pretty good. Now down here, we want to make sure that we've got lots happening. So it's important to make sure that some of these reeds are pulling forward into the pond a bit where they
the illusion of the surface is really interesting. With
yes,
the shaky.
Needs a little wiggle in the, and the thing to think of is that these things do have a lot going on in their directions, and their, thing is their little story in the painting is as important as his story in the painting. They kind of give context to his story, don't they?
Yeah.
They also give context to what's happening around him. Like there's almost a negative space painting happening here on the reeds where his shape is defined by the absence of their shape.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super fascinating. Little wiggles down here. And again, when we add the highlights to these reeds, that's when a lot of this will seem to come to life. Completely. And there's a lot of work here to do. I won't lie. There's a lot of reading.
There's a little reads, but
there's
that's okay.
There's a few reads that you got to think about.
Take your time on them.
Take your time on them. Yes, do.
More reads.
More reads. And guess what?
What's that?
More reads over here.
Even more?
Even more. Even more.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And hopefully at this point, the mirroring principles have become kind of second nature or starting to feel less obscure and mysterious to you. How does water reflection get painted?
It's more intuitive now.
Yeah, we're hoping that it is. It's getting more intuitive. I'm hoping the mini books or, any of the supplemental materials that you guys get, are helping you guys get through this series even better than the previous acrylic Aprils. Like it's my goal. I can't imagine what acrylic April, if we keep doing this every year, I can't imagine how good we're going to get at teaching this particular program.
I think it could be fun.
I have a dream that there'll be a group of people who do it every year. I'm sure there will be.
I do it every year.
Yeah, you do. He's as committed as I am to the acrylic April program.
That's true.
It's a super amazing.
I like it.
And just making sure that he's got the reeds.
The reeds.
He's framed by reeds. As you are. And sometimes you're only framed by the reeds. You're as good as the last reed you painted.
A few more reeds. That's pretty
There's
good.
just a few that you've got to, you've got some reeds to talk about. And there we go.
Wow.
I think we have some reeds around our fisherman.
Yeah.
So, he's got context. He's got grasses. We know where he is. He's in the water. We can tell because there's reflections and there's reeds and they're doing things that you'd expect water to do. So when we come back, we're going to put the highlights on the reeds above the water, which is going to make these reflections look even more. And then I'm going to show you another trick to make them feel even more reflection-y. Don, I want to point out something kind of cool. Can you see the figure now a little bit?
You could see him kind of out. You could see his pants.
And you get a sense that he's there.
The trousers.
Right? Like that. And that's how negative space painting really kind of works, is creating that space around there. Now, to really make this work, though, we've got to create some more yellow grasses. So I'm going to take my cad yellow over to my burnt sienna. I can always get a smidge of my ultramarine in it. And when I use just a smidge of my ultramarine in it, it's going to gray it into more of an ochre, which is why I didn't really necessarily feel like I needed the ochre this year. So I was like, I can get there. So I'm going to mix up my ochre again. Now, if you need color mixing help, download the 403 color mixes, and there's the mini book. There's all that stuff ready for you. But if you're ready to go, burnt sienna, cad yellow, with a little bit of ultramarine to gray it out, and some titanium white. There you go. That's how you would get to like a gold or an ochre. I should make a video of just that, John, because there's all these videos with like millions of views. They're like, how to make gold. I'm like,
yeah, you should
with
do it.
any set of colors, but okay. I should, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
You guys will be like, if you see him, like, I know what she's doing. So what I'm doing is I'm coming up to the spaces above the reflections, and I'm adding a set of highlights that make these a little bit lighter. I might even add some more white here, so I can highlight even more. And you can see that that instantly makes them a different grouping than what's down below. It's kind of fussy once again. And I like to have the dark on there because it keeps enough contrast going that even as you paint in these reeds that you've got happening. It gives context to what's going on.
Kind of does. I love the negative space appearance there. That was really nice.
Yeah, I could do a whole series on that because it's such a weird, crazy thing when you paint out, the spaces around the subject, and then the subject starts to happen. And then if you don't put everything back in the subject, and you get some really interesting fine art, I think.
Yeah.
You can see we're just adding those highlights to some of those little reeds. You can add more brown, you can add more white, more yellow. It's totally okay. 'Cause these are little sticks, aren't they?
Yeah. Kind of highlighted by the sun.
Well, and they're dried out, and again, the reflection of water is darker always than what's up top. If you lose your shadows as you're painting your highlights, you can always put them back. So you're not in trouble if somehow like some of this gets so like washed out that it disappears for you. Maybe I'll add a little more white to some things. Just to give them more of a real, the really real.
Really real.
Just adding those little details to the reeds. And that will help those feel like reeds between the legs.
Mm-hmm.
You're if you are painting this because you yourself have the love of the fishing, or maybe you're painting this for somebody in your life that loves fishing, this is going to be a part of the painting that will really resonate for them because these are the spaces in their world. Go more brown, go more yellow, change it up. Here we go. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you've only highlighted the ones above the water.
Only the ones above the water. The ones in the water stay like they are. And I'm going to take my number 4 round, the glazing medium that I have. If I can get it out of the bottle today. I let it gum up a little bit. There you go. I don't need much. Right? You can do this with just water. I'm going to use glazing medium because it's a nice effect. And I'll grab just my ultramarine.
Oh, wow.
I might actually add my burnt.
Is that glazing?
Yeah, I'm glazing just under the water where this reflection is sort of happening. So I'm darkening it just it's like another way to create a shadow, right? And you can do this with water with a thing, but you've got to let it really bind for. And let me actually correct you. You can do this with professional paints and water. Golden did some studies where it won't underbind if you let it rest or cure for like 3 weeks. And you can read that on their Just Paint blog if you want to know more about that specifically. But you can see then you create this sort of space here where there's a little grove. You can always come back and take a little white in the ultramarine and bits of highlight. For the reeds, which is also quite powerful.
Those look good.
It does. And since we're here, grab a little bit of maybe our black and our blue. I'll glaze that, and we'll take and make a little reflection coming from where our boots are going to be in the water down over the canvas. Just now, because we know we're going to need it. Grab a little ultramarine white and just, but there you go. So you've got that kind of happening now there. And you can exaggerate the highlight between the boots if it's needed pretty easily. There you go.
Wow.
So, woo!
Wow, that looks so cool. That negative face.
Now we get to do the fisherman part, which is fun, right?
Is that the next step?
That is the next step. So we're back and we're going to block in our fishing dude. Fishing person. So I'm going to take my number 4 round and I'm going to mix a dark green. I'm going to take my ultramarine and my phthalo blue with my cad yellow. And I'm going to actually get kind of this deep green here. Get some brown into it. Oh, there we go.
Where are you going to put that?
Army green on pants. So that was, just in case you guys need to know, that was phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, cad yellow, and a little bit of burnt sienna.
In all fairness, nature had that green first, and that's why the Army picked it.
I guess if fairness were an important part of this experience. I
mean, to the green. It wasn't,
All right. Well, if I have upset green anywhere, I apologize. If you're feeling like I didn't acknowledge your contribution to the color of Army Camouflage, you just write in to support at theartsherpa.com and tell us how you feel, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. Keep brushing this in here. Now, as we come on the back, you can add a little black to this because it's going to be a little darker back here. And so you can talk about that even at this beginning spot. I love how, like, sometimes pants are kind of wrinkled because they're like a little baggy. Enjoyable to me. This is just coat number 1. We're just putting in a thing because we needed a thing. Mm-hmm. It's really all it is. I'm going to take my blue and black together, my phthalo blue and my Mars black. I'm going to make quite a dark color. And in the base of the boots. There probably won't be too much more of what has to be done here. Mm-hmm. We'll do a little bit of the water ring around the boots, but really it's not. Get some gray going. We do that just by adding white to that mix. Again, this is blocking in, and blocking in just means I'm painting in the rough zones, basic shapes, contours, and values that I'm going to be building up the figure from. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be doing a very taupey jacket. I'm going to just actually pull some burnt sienna into the mix I had from earlier, which was a little cad yellow, and I think I had graded a bit with ultramarine blue, but I don't need to worry about that now. I'm just mixing back into where I had it. And I'm going to make a very light taupey color.
Very light.
Very light taupey color. There. Taupey. He is not wearing orange.
Nope, he's not worried about fish seeing him.
No, he's clearly not worried about fish seeing him. Or anyone else for that matter. He's like, nope, don't care. Come forward here. Now, there's going to be some value changes like under the sleeve and everything, so I won't get that much into it until I add my darker color into my mix, which is just really grabbing some black and mixing it into my taupey mix. He, much like you, John, did not want to be cold.
No. Fishermen are not known for that.
He was like, you can do anything you want, but what I'm not going to be today is cold. So we're just sort of saying arms sort of generally here, jacket sort of generally there, shadow sort of generally over here. Lots of details to do for sure.
I like the two shades there.
Sometimes not only does it help you when you're building up your paint, it does absolutely help you when you're building up your paint, but it lets you kind of see what shapes are taking up your space. Now I can get back into my black up here. And his little collar, which is a very interesting little collar. A bit of a collar. I'm going to do a weird thing, John.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to come down to the boots again.
Okay.
Because this needs to be darker and a little bit wiggly.
Kind of have them rolling off the surface a little bit?
Yeah. And I just want the reflection to be a little darker. I mean, the shadow to be a little darker. We'll add some little rear reflections. We just want that to be at least as stunning as the reeds. Skin tone, I'm going to just initially grab a little bit of yellow into my cad red and some white. He's not particularly tan. So I'm probably going to keep it in the cad red and a yellow space.
Yeah.
With white right in there.
Right in there?
Yep. Peachy. Now there's a little bit of an ear shadow that we're going to get in, but we're not going to worry about it right now. We're going to do that with our detail brush. We just want this base tone of like, I have some skin. I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can see better. That little spot there, my yellow line. There we go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to move things so you can see. And interestingly enough, we're back to the pants.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. I get some ultramarine into that. We've gone a little more brown, but it doesn't really matter.
Got to keep his pants on. Oh, you're not.
Not back to the pants. I meant we're back to the pants color. I should have been more specific.
You're fooling me now.
I wasn't trying to, but I see how I did. I'm going to turn my canvas so that I have an easier time getting to what I'm painting. So I'm doing the hat right now, the back of the hat with a dark color. And I may add a little yellow to this, just a bit to get into a, I don't know, slightly lighter color. I can add some white. Just talking about values at this point. So it's not really so much hat details is lighter, drabby green, darker, drabby green.
That's kind of the colors of green.
As you can see, that gives us a space to work ourselves from.
Really does.
There we go. And then the weird last touch, just so I remember that it's there, I'm going to take some black and brown again. I need to make sure that this is up. Kind of at an angle. So it's got a turtlenecky. Woo, that was a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Woo. All right. So that's this step. You have him blocked in. You know where he is. You know how much shape he takes up. He looks a little bit like a potato. So if yours looks like a potato, good job. So now what we've got to do is make him feel like he belongs in this lake. Like his weird roughness almost throws the rest of the lake off. So it's very important to continue on at this stage to paint him in. Now I kind of want to have some scratchy, rough marks. And so to get into that, I'm going to get my hog brush out. This is a number 6 round that has chunking hog that's interlocked. So they're all kind of curving in and they get real fun and rough. And it's good to have a hog brush around just because you can get a very rough aspect. I'm going to pull my brown out and grab a little of my black here. Kind of get into my white. And so we're working this back of the jacket, right? The back of the jacket over to my black. Finding my colors. Sometimes you just got to find your colors. Even more black, I think.
There it is.
Now, at this stage, you just want to get your basic zones of value through. I'm going to start by getting the coverage in and then kind of playing with how the highlights and lowlights are. Definitely make sure we have a dark space under the jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Because there would be one. Maybe pull a little triangle up there into the jacket for where a fold might be. And then when I want to blend through, I come in here and just, what I'm doing is I am painting kind of the folds of fabric. And those are always interesting to represent.
I like how you can make the fabric just have so much depth.
Well, and though he has a very unassuming little coat, it does have some nice wrinkling to it. So, you know, and some of what is got it big and is going is shown in the wrinkling. So we've got to figure out a way to capture that and kind of play with that. And that's why I like a rough brush. Because also you can see it helps me blend and yet to have control. At the bottom kind of pulls them up. But I can easily get into my white, as you can see.
Yeah.
Back here. And add a bit of a highlight at the shoulder here. And maybe a little wrinkle highlight. And you're going to be playing with these highlights. So let's say there's one right here. Because the fabric kind of bent and caught a little light, perhaps. And you just go through the black and white, lightening and darkening your colors. You're not trying to do like a super intense rendered example. I might get some yellow into that. So I'm grabbing my brown and my yellow to warm up the front of the jacket. There we go. Warming it up. See?
Yeah.
So it's not just lightning values. Towards the back, I'm going to go into blacks and blues and cool those shadows. And at the front of the jacket, where the light's hitting him, I might go into my browns and yellows to warm the highlights. And so not only is the dark and light of that situation creating form, but the warmth and cool of it as well. And a little bit of highlight right there. There's these interesting little spots that are going on that I for sure want to capture if I'm going to catch how this jacket folds.
Right.
There we go. Kind of coming down. That's sort of fun. And now he's starting to, in that space, sort of look like he belongs in this painting. So that's another thing that you will see as you go. That sometimes your paintings will look like they belong in a space more as you find room. And this is weird because this is actually the front. This is a fold. I want to kind of get that that is sleeve folded forward. A little bit of a highlight there. And that's what I will be doing is finding little highlights.
Mm.
And the other color I can get into this, interestingly enough, is my ultramarine blue. So I can make a lighter value over here, but still make it feel like it's kind of in shadow.
Hmm.
You know, and that is a little bit that the lake will reflect things coming up. I need to get more into the ultramarine blue. I can.
Yeah.
Nope, too much. So what I do is I'll go back into my gray color
Mm.
and blend that in a bit. But that does help create that water reflecting light back on the jacket feeling as well, which is an important thing to sort of capture because as he's standing there, the light is being reflected.
Wow.
A little more blue. To the back of that coat. Definitely, this shadow I feel has a good amount of like, there's this weird kind of curve in the sleeve right here. And there's lots of them, but this one is pretty key. Then there's another one right here. A little bit at the elbow. So now that's starting to really wrinkle in. Feel like it's got a moment. Put some little blue down there. Get into my brown and black. Adding some of those deep shadows here. Kind of capture the back of that sleeve, right?
Mm. Wow, that just comes in.
Just starts to come in as the weird little jacket he's wearing. Can always get into a lighter value, and I will play with that. You should play with that as much as you can because those little highlights they make a huge difference to what you're saying.
Yeah. Those little blotchy bits of paint just really sort of make that fabric have more life to it.
It does. It looks wrinkly.
Yeah.
It needs to look wrinkly. You want it to feel like it's definitely there. I'll play. Now, if you're using your hog brush out of the water for a long time, what will happen over time is that the paint will start to dry on it. So you will have to rinse out every once in a while. And reload. And there we go. We've got kind of the beginnings of a very nice jacket going here.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel khaki. It does feel beige, but I'm just taking the brush back here, making sure that sweep that up. There we go. A little darker right there. We got this.
Wow.
And I think it's also important to make sure that under the collar, I'm going to grab some blue. Because we'll be coming back there with some black, but we do want a little of that under the collar. The collar would break that light.
Mm.
So we'll say that's the jacket. Let's call that a step and come back and pants it up. So I think we should work on the pants for a little bit.
Yeah?
Maybe the collar, but definitely the pants.
All right.
So same round hog brush. And I'm going to be getting into all my fabulous greens. Let's get into this yellow green that I had made earlier. This is such a good green. And start to get to the front of the pants. Such a good green. So this is interesting because there's a lot happening here. And then also there is the shading of the paint. So it kind of creates its own pattern and then value challenge. So you have to solve both. You have different values, but you also have a pattern that's going on in there. I'm going to take my brown over to my blue and kind of create some dark colors. And I'm going to keep it in these, army greens, these camouflage greens. But I also have to look at the value of the pants. So at the back here, it's not completely black, but it's pretty dark. So let's get into our black. And add some wrinkles and some things that are there. And then as we have added those, then we can come back and do patterns.
Okay.
But what I would say is first value, then pattern. Dark under the coat through there. Really, this front leg is what's shaded and a little few spots on the back leg. But the back leg is not in light. We have to keep that in mind. Rinse out. So we're kind of creating some volume and some thought there. Now, while that's having a dry, we can do some fun stuff with our gray. I'm going to take my black and white. And come to the front of our boot. Just a touch that. And then what's great is it goes really dark. So I'll wipe this off with my towel and then grab a lot more black. So it's gray, but it's very dark. Now I'll move this to have a better angle. I'm going to turn it slightly on the turntable just to have a better angle. And then a little bit of a highlight there.
Yeah.
Just to get that. Then there's a weird little kind of highlight at the corner of that boot. And then a little one here. And then we'll actually come in with this water ripple, which will put those in the water beautifully. Now I feel like I've got a little more, and I'll even glaze with my black back here. A little bit of shading on that pocket.
Yep.
So we're getting there, and we're kind of seeing the value of what's going on where he's standing. I can take a little ultramarine, some burnt sienna, some cad yellow, making that BB green. I'm going to make sure that I put some of those spots of that distinctive green here and there. Like here at the back half. These are small, subtle little moments, but they'll come into play a little later. Get a little of my brown on that brush. Again, just breaking those up. Now I can get into my yellow here, which not only lightens the value, but it neutralizes what I've got. And on that camouflage, we're creating just a few little highlights across the pocket. And tabbing the brush around. So I'm trying not to make, I'm not only making highlights, but I'm kind of trying also to break patterns. So you can see why camouflage is a powerful tool for the hunter. I'm going to make a kind of darker color, but still pretty light. So we can come add some of this back here. And we're just putting bits of it. It's not a lot. It'll blend in there. We have a bit of the highlights there. You can see the camouflage. You can see that patterning. Since I'm here, I'll go ahead and get a little of my blue and black and make sure that my collar
Sharpen the collar up a little bit.
Yeah, let's give it a little bit of depth and value. So that was the phthalo blue and Mars black.
It's interesting to use a sort of a coarse brush to do that with.
But it looks really good and it keeps that line soft. Back into our detail monogram liner, we've got to do a couple important things. We're going to take a little bit of our water and white color and make a thin mix.
Oh, it delineates the line of the water.
Right. And it's just a slight moment, but it definitely shows where that is. You also come here and kind of make a sharp line on that. Just that pocket. Doesn't have to be everything. That pocket is really quite enough. And then I'm going to rinse out. Come under the jacket. With a little bit of trim.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes trim is a big deal. I'm going to come over here to my gray. Same purpose. Sometimes trim is a big deal because it lets us understand that something is particularly structured, you know, a hat or glasses or buttons or pockets. And a shadow. Just making sure there's a few structural lines. A few. They have to be. But it lets us see what's happening on the boots as well. Okie dokie. Next is the head. And then, wait, actually, I want to do one last thing.
Okay.
Before we step. I'm going to take my monogram liner and my black paint and come under the coat. Make another little parallel line. That is the hem.
Ah.
I'm also going to kind of line along some of this jacket, showing those delineations. Sometimes those little lines can also help a piece find its legs.
Oh, yeah.
Added just a little bit of black lining to create some anchored placement. We've got little bits of water there to show that the boots are in water. And that's what the reflection is coming out from. Come back, we're going to do the hat and the face. So I was just saying to Todd after the hat and the face were done, and then I was like, oh yeah, he's fishing. We still have to do a pull. So hat and face and then pull.
That's all right.
That's okay. We don't mind. It's all right. So let's get into the areas of the face because those are maybe sometimes a little more challenging. I'm going to take a little of my cad red and some of my burnt sienna and make kind of a dark brown. And we're going to come to about the mid spot on the cheek and make a little curved line that goes down. I don't know if that's a millimeter or not. Just a little bit. This is going to be the ear. And this is just one of those things where just a soft touch is great. If you need a magnifier, you should get one. And what I mean by that is there are loops and things for artists so that they can see their artwork, because sometimes you have fussy work like this to do. I'm going to get some black, blue. I'm going to go ahead and let the glazing medium be on it, but I just want to make sure that I've got a shadow behind the ear. Comes down. See how there's just a shadow?
Yeah.
It's so weird. You don't paint the ear. You paint a weird curvy line and then a weird shadowy line. And then we're going to come here with a little highlight. Has to be pretty thin though. The highlight. Can't be too thick. Pretty thin. But that just gives us that beginning of everything. And I
Mhm.
can still come with a little burnt sienna and titanium white along here. We will let the front of the face, I'm gonna grab some yellow, be in light. So we're just making sure that this is well painted. And see how we've got some different little zones. It's just fun. Now we've got black and brown. And for the hair, which I do like, I can come along the hat with a dark line, and that can help sometimes. Even along the neckline.
Ah.
We'll grab the blue, and I'm again monogram liner, just to have a lot of control over everything. White, just for the front. Adding a little black for the back, and now we have a nice little blue color, but that's shaded.
Uh-huh.
I may go ahead and use my number 4 round for the hat, all the same colors that really we were doing in the camouflage down below. So that's always sort of interesting. The big trick is going to be to make sure that things are not only camouflaged, but the right values.
Hmm.
I've added some brown over my green. I'm going to get some yellow into it. Some white into that. Make sure that those colors I can get my ultramarine over here. And you can see very quickly it goes that green gold. Tapping that up. Come back here with this. Little light color.
Yeah.
So we're just getting his little hat on. And much like the back, we want to make sure that the back of the hat is in good value
Mm-hmm.
for where it is in the painting. In other words, is it light or dark enough? And really, the side here has to be so much lighter
Mm-hmm.
because it's in the light. I'm going to make a very light version of the green. There we go. I'm just trying to make sure this side and that have that differential. I will get my detail brush and load into the black.
All right.
I'm going to add just a couple of lines to help it find its, its space. We're just making sure his hat has the few details that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's his head. That's all there really is. Is that awesome?
That really is. His little ears just poking out there now.
The ears are really, I mean, that's the one that you're going to struggle for. That's the one that's worth the struggle. Because when you work out your little, the thing about it is like realizing that the ear comes in at an angle, that the shadow kind of pieces in and comes back because the lobe's got to be separate from the head. You got your little highlight, your little shadow color, because ears kind of go red because the light shines through them. If you've ever shined a flashlight through your hand.
Yeah.
So it's a similar effect. Now we get to do we'll come back, we'll do the fishing pole. So now we have to give this guy a reason to be out standing in the lake. Otherwise, it's just a very strange activity. So let's put a pole in his hand so it makes sense. I'm going to take a little bit of my blue and black again, and I'm going to thin it out. I'm on my number 1 monogram liner. And we had our yellow here, so I'm going to very carefully draw that line. And I won't talk a lot during the drawing the line because talking conversing, being on the phone, all that'll mess up your line work. So we're starting to get a pole in.
Mm.
Now, as I come back towards him, the pole will get thicker.
What's that?
I think I'm putting the pole in the wrong place.
Why is that?
I think I mistook a reed for a pole.
Oh.
I'm going to just clean this off.
Did you just?
Yeah, I think I just had a moment where I was like, that's a pole, but it's not a pole in any way.
Huh.
It's not. It's a reed. So I'm just fixing my boo-boo here. I generally, if I can lift it up, I will, and then touch it up with color that blends it out. So the pool should be under his arm. I don't fish. That's what's happened. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I'm not much of a fisherman person. He could have been holding it under his other arm. Maybe you knew. You never know.
There we go. And actually, that does make a little more sense. The other thing that we want to do is we've got these very tiny little circular lines that we've got to do on the pole. See these here? These little circular lines are apparently, I don't know, important. Someone's going to be like, yeah, it's important. And as you come down, they get a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to thin some white and gray. And come up the center of the pole.
Little highlights.
That pole has some highlights. And they're not the only ones we're going to do, but this one I could do with the paint as it was. That's the first highlight. But I'm going to pull out another trick of mine, which is the titanium fluid white paint. Now you can use craft paint or you can continue to thin white paint on your thing, but this is highly pigmented. So I'm going to put out a little bit and I'll let it get just somewhat toned with the gray color, but really I want it to be mostly white light. And I'm going to come here and make kind of a dotted, dashed little reflection. See? To make the pole feel more metallic.
Really does.
I'm not going to take it too much past this point, I don't think, because this is far off in the distance. And that's, all we're going to do there. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of the gray into the fluid. And then also the handle's got some patterning on it. I want to make sure I get that on there. Guess what? We did it.
Did you?
We did it.
Wow.
We did it. We painted this scene. And this is that scene that you can give to the if you are a fishing person, this is probably the scene that you've been trying to capture. This is the scene that you can give to the outdoor sports person in your life. I feel like, we covered a lot of really wonderful technique concepts that maybe we haven't been introduced to before. And so we're closer to understanding our story of water. I think we have to sign it, John.
I think so too.
I think so too. So I'm going to take my ultramarine and this white and make a light color, but I don't want to have it be so bright and so annoying that I ruin all the work that I did. And it's almost like even annoying to sign it here, but I'll go ahead and do it. So what it is that the signature is important to me. Some people don't believe in signing their art, and some people believe in really signing their art. I do sign my art, but I don't want it to undermine all the work that I just did. So I try to do it in a way that's not too disruptive to the composition.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
This is amazing. I cannot, this has been great so far.
It really has.
And, as we go forward and as we go deeper into this journey, maybe you just came here for this one painting. Maybe you are here for all 30. But for sure, if you did this painting, you know a little bit more about water than you did before you started it.
It's true.
Which is really kind of the goal. To make water just an easy subject, landscape matter that you just like, yeah, I can paint water. It's no problem. I can't wait. I'm going to get hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people out there going, yeah, I paint water. It's no problem.
Maybe.
So that's the goal. That's my goal for you. But if you're not there today, remember to be easy with yourself, right? This is a journey. You're learning skills. It takes a minute to understand the concepts and build up on them. So if you're in that place where you're building up on the concepts, be sure and use the support materials. Do the extra things that we have to help make it easier for you guys to make the hoots not as challenging, because they can make a real difference. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel real soon. Bye-bye.